I think childcare has always been on the bottom rung of the ladder. You know, we don't get the same respect or anywhere near the same pay as teachers, for example, and yet we do a job that's equally as important. I've been working in this profession for 9 years. I've worked in full daycare nursery, creches all over the city. I've worked in after school, breakfast club, holiday play schemes, playgroups. And yet, for all this year's experience, all my qualifications, I earn just 95 pence an hour more than my 21-year-old son, who works for a very famous American burger chain. I'm supposed to say I'm not loving it. You know, when you work in a profession that is undervalued, you do start to undervalue yourself. And early on in the inquiry, I did want to pull out. I didn't feel that I had anything worth contributing. But Joe and Janice came to see me and talked me around, and I did agree to stick with it. Joan asked me to think about my values and what motivated me and why I did the job that I do. And I remembered a teacher I'd had in my first year of secondary school who taught me to dive. I wasn't a strong swimmer. In fact, I'd only just learned to swim in the summer holidays, and I avoided going swimming with friends because I wasn't confident in the water, and the thought of diving terrified me. But I can still see my teacher patiently sitting beside me on the pool, trying to coax me in. At first I hoped she'd just give up on me, but she didn't, a bit like Joan. And she seemed to spend an awful long time just with me. I think all the others had mastered diving by then. We'd start off at the sitting position at the shower end, and we'd gradually move further up along the side of the pool. And I don't know, it seemed to be, she instinctively knew when to push me and when to back off, but at the end I could dive perfectly in the deep end. And I've never forgotten the huge sense of achievement I felt on that day. And I realise now what a fantastic, dedicated teacher she was. I think, you know, she was one of the influences that brought me to this point. I think everyone needs to remember one of these experiences, good or bad, to really understand the impact it can have on a child and how one person can make a difference. You're aware now that every word and every action can make such a huge difference to a child's confidence and self-esteem. Joan then asked me to write something about what I do in my setting on a day-to-day basis, and somehow it turned into a poem, and it got lots of positive praise, you know, lots of good feedback, and it was published in a childcare journal, and it was just really nice to think that someone valued my opinions. By taking part in this inquiry, I feel that my confidence has really improved, and hopefully that'll help me back at the settlement, and it will help in my practice. It's been great working with a range of practitioners from all over the city and to share our knowledge and our experiences and, yes, our expertise. I suppose all I can do now is try and make my setting a safe, happy, nurturing place for all the children who attend. I've become very passionate now about encouraging other staff and promoting the importance of being, you know, in the moment and working on a moment-to-moment basis. Encouraging them, you know, that how they are in the present time is really important, and it can make such a difference to a child. You know, every moment does count. I feel ashamed to say that I've never dived as an adult. I'm still not a great swimmer, and I still avoid swimming just as I did when I was a child. But the important point is that I can, because of that teacher, because of the care and the patience she's shown to me. I can, you know, if I need to, say, and that's what really matters in the end, that I can.
Okay.
What I wanted to do, and listening to other practitioners as well, I just don't know where I'm going with this, but as it progressed and the sessions were developing, I thought, yeah, you know, there's something really in our setting that, you know, I can change here, and, you know, I'm starting to sit up straight and listen to other people as well. Now in my setting, I've been there for 15 years. I didn't plan on staying there that long, but for various reasons I did. But I'm glad I did. I've got no regrets because it's made me the practitioner practitioner that I am today. I am a Senko within the setting and done that role for about 7 years, but the past year I've taken a more active and lead role due to the manager giving me the time to do so, and obviously I've been able to develop that role, so I'm always looking for ways to develop inclusive practice and support the staff within the setting. A lot of practitioners don't have the confidence to speak up because they don't feel that they're seen as professionals, whereas as the project's developed, again now I feel like I've got the confidence to do that because we are professionals, we're early years professionals. There's one story in particular to me is a success story within our setting, and it's about Makaton. So Makaton is a structured language programme which is using signs and gestures alongside the words as well. And this is two language programmes. So we've never used this within our setting before, so it was quite a new challenge for us. But the good thing was a little boy who started nursery who was using the Makaton as his form of communication. So it was our duty as professionals to get on board with Makaton because we needed to support this child with communication. And the good thing was he started at a very early age as well, so we could sort of go at the same pace that he was to build our vocabulary up. So myself and a few others embarked on a Makaton sign course. It was very intense to begin with, but this ran for 2 days, 2 full days, but the staff as well as myself came away feeling hungry for more. Quite proud of ourselves really. So because resources were quite low at the nursery, we drew our own symbols and we've just expanded from there. Now the little boy in particular has his own inclusion practitioner who works for local council, and he comes out and just ensures that we support him within the setting. Now this guy's a really nice guy, he comes out and in his own time he has given the staff who didn't have the opportunity to go on the Makaton course a little twilight session, and they absolutely loved it. So we've got all the staff on board using the Makaton now, and he comes as well and does fun activities, so we're learning Makaton in a fun way as well. Well, because the younger children have got very limited language, they were starting to use the Makaton at home, and the parents were saying, they're coming home and they're deciding they want more juice or more food. We were absolutely really impressed with the work that we've been doing with them. So for the parents to comment on it as well, it's another confidence boost for us as well as staff. Right, yeah, so this has been a wonderful experience for us as practitioners because we have actually met the needs of this child and we continue to meet the needs of this child. So, we're looking always at ways to enhance this experience and maximise potential within our setting as well. So it's important to us that we've actually supported this child, and we feel that sharing the responsibility of this as well is making our practice inclusive as well. And that's why we feel it's important to have a very early input in this child's life because every moment does count.
Like Angie, when I first started the inquiry, I didn't really know what it was about, I didn't understand it. I think it was because of the training that's like a final result that day, and with research, it's the nature of research that it's different, you don't have an outcome straight away. After the first few meetings, I enjoyed the meetings and everybody else had interesting things to say, but I didn't feel that I had anything to offer the inquiry. I couldn't really think of what I was going to do as part of my action plan, and then I decided to study my role as the Senko and how I could improve that. I decided to write about a little boy who would be known as Mark because I felt strongly that his story was something all too common in nurseries. He started our nursery just before his second birthday, and straight away we noticed his speech was very unclear. It was almost like his own language type of thing, not just stammer or unclear speech. We thought there was probably more to it. But we left him to settle in the nursery for a couple of weeks, and then we decided to speak to his mum and ask how he was at home. She said she could understand every word he said, he was fine, and she didn't have any concerns about him at all. So we carried on observing him, and then the next thing his mum got made redundant, so she took him away from the nursery. he returned to our nursery just before his third birthday and came back, and then it was even more evident that there was more problems, and his speech was still very unclear at times, but then he could recite things from the telly really, really clearly, and he could understand every word, but he wouldn't use as communication for speech, which was his speech for communication, which was really concerning us. When we spoke to his mum about having him referred, she was a little bit upset, and it became really hard to speak to her, and she would use avoidance tactics like using a mobile phone every time she came to the nursery so that we couldn't speak to her. So obviously she was finding it really difficult, and then so were we. And then one day out of the blue we got a phone call from a speech therapist. The speech therapist said he'd been referred. She thought by me, but I knew obviously it wasn't me, and it was another nursery. And then it came to like that, he'd actually left that nursery shortly after he'd been referred. When the speech therapist done the assessment, I mentioned to her that I felt it was more than just speech problems, and she agreed that he would need to be referred to a paediatrician. After a lot of persuasion, his mum agreed to this, although she didn't agree with all what was in the report. And then we were really glad that she did agree to it. And then he left the nursery, which meant that he didn't have any of his needs put into place for when he goes to school. We didn't know really when he left the area, so it was just upsetting that he'd gone, and we felt like we'd failed. But then if you really think about it, it's more society and their viewpoints about nurseries that affect our confidence, so that we find it difficult to speak to parents about things that we really know. But because I've been part of the project, I'm thinking more now about it's us that have to speak up, it's us that have to do something about this and change society's views about our job, because we aren't people who just paint and change nappies all day.
Well, I mean, those are all really interesting. In a way, what I'd like to find out about is how they have gone on from there, and kind of what happens next.
Well, actually, they're here, so you can ask them for yourself. And they will explain to you what this whole process is meant to be.
So I was going to ask actually, so Mandy, do you think what you said, would you have been able to implement that without the inquiry?
Probably not with the confidence side of things, and I think as well, only the little boy started the nursery, that's how we got on board with the hackathon. But I've got the confidence now to cascade down to the staff and empower the staff in my setting, and I feel I've got the confidence to do that now. So with this inquiry, that has a major input in what I'm actually doing in the nursery. So yeah, I think this has changed things for me, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a thank the three of you, because when I went in to do the videoing, the thought that you'd be standing here with this kind of confidence to a whole group, I don't think it entered our minds at all, did it? And I mean, it's just to thank you for all that presentation and what you said. And is there anything that you feel that you'd like to ask either Andrew or Mandy or Sue in terms of what you've heard? Because as I say, it's really nice to start that sense of your participation. This is what really matters today. Anything that you feel, yes, could be? You might just have to speak up.
Very well done to the three of you. How did the other people in your settings, feel about the purpose of the inquiry? Did they have much involvement themselves?
Well, for me, it was more just passing on the moment by moment stuff. For me, that's what made a big impact and a big change. And I have passed it on to my colleagues, and they have taken it on board, and we have seen changes, and we've seen changes in the children's behaviour, which is lovely. So yeah, that's what I've done.
Yes. Yeah.
Three of you have clearly developed. Could you tell me a little bit, though, how you ensure that you embed that?
The question was about how you embed that. So now that since you've developed, how it's kind of where you go from here, really.
For me, it's just building my confidence so that I can do more for the children, especially in my role as the second care, because I feel it's really important that they get, that early intervention to help them.
Can I just speak, share something, because I've been working a little bit with Sue.
Yeah, I've been working a little bit with Sue, and it really interested me, this her story about the little boy who came and went, and it was all about how can we speak to the mum, and that happens a lot in our settings. It's one of a really big barrier to maybe getting things in place, but there's a sense really amongst the practitioners, and they will share this with you, that it's about getting the child referred on and not really thinking, actually, we can make a big difference. And when we were talking about shifts in thinking, this is exactly what I'm seeing happen with for example, Sue, because at the moment, there's another little boy that she's got concerns about in her nursery. And because of this experience and because of her shift in her perception of the fact that she can make a difference, and she is a professional and she has a lot to offer, she's working with that child and his parent in a very different way, and is working with the parent and is able to share things more. And I mean, it's still going on now, but it's certainly a lot more. You've been a lot more involved and felt that you could make a difference. So. And also, whilst I'm here and got the microphone, I'd just also like to say that that Ange as well, who works in the after school club, she during one of the stories, would you like to tell it, Ange, about the little boy who you weren't being listened to when you were doing the assessment? Do you know which story I mean?
We have a little boy who started with us from reception. And straight away it was quite obvious this boy had some additional needs. But my frustrations were, as an after-school worker, and even as being a Senko in an after-school, nobody listens to after-school. And this little boy has gone through quite a long process with different assessments and referrals. But my frustration is that we have so much valuable information on this little boy and nobody's interested. And I have liaised with school and with parents, which is great. But I just think, people do refer to nurseries, they do refer to schools. But out of hours care, whether it's breakfast club or after school or play schemes, we have these children for a long time during the day. Key times sometimes early morning, after school when they're very tired, and certain behaviours become very apparent. And I just think, for me, it's something that should change, that we should be, asked for reports and our information, because we do quite a lot about it, and that was it really.
Yeah, I know, because you were observing that this child who, in school, he hadn't really had the access to the sensory play that you were providing, and he was actually using this, I think it was, I don't know, is it sound or some sort of, and it was very significant the way he was engaging with that, and nobody really picked that up, and it was quite a significant observation really. So
I think for us, because school sometimes is very structured, and the children's behaviour is to what's being asked of them, we're seeing a very natural chosen behaviour that, we were getting completely different things. So the teacher was quite an interesting conversation on what she was seeing and what we were getting. So there is very different behaviours in different settings. So that was why it was so important for us, really.
And I know that because of Angela's story, and you shared that with an educational psychologist, didn't you? It was at one of our groups, and she's taken that on board, and now that the teams are looking at widening the radar of the practitioners that they will speak to about children. So thank you.
I just wanted to say as well, we've got Kelly Craig as a practitioner not on video.
Not be under there, to be perfectly honest with you, or outside of this.
And in general, a lot of the comments you get has come through as very positive, but I think Debbie's got something to say, that there's another side that's got to be looked at in this whole
Yeah, very much like the girls that have spoken now. I was on a roller coaster ride with this inquiry, and one minute I knew what I was doing, then I did, until it all came down to Joan really encouraging us to think about our core values, and mine was always kindness, but I hadn't really thought about it so deeply, and it was like a major therapeutic lesson in work. And then the light bulb suddenly went on one day, because we were reflecting so much through video footage and my work with the parents, that I didn't actually realise the impact I made by working with the parents, because we have to work very closely with them. None of our parents have English as the first language, so it's quite a monumental task dealing with different ways to communicate with them, but I just hadn't given it much thought, just went in and I did it. So that was marvellous, but then I said to Joan one day, I feel really deflated, because where do I go with this? I feel stuck. I feel I've done so much in my practice, and now I've realised what I've done, and I've hopefully supported the team in everything they do, and learners that come through the door learn through us as role models. But I just feel now, how do I take that forward and make all the practitioners feel like I do, that we are doing the most amazing job, but just don't realise that every single thing we do has an impact somewhere along the line, because in some ways we are a little bit robotic and we have to step back and actually see what we're doing, and that's where I do feel really stuck, that I've got nowhere to take this. I'm not an academic. I've probably, personally in my life, I probably will not get to that point when I can do a degree. So where do I go now with this? I can carry on with the work in the nursery doing what I'm doing, but I want to be able to go to every other person that felt like me initially, and not just have it in my workplace, and that's why I feel a little bit negative, that I've got nowhere to take this now, and that's the point I wanted to get across today.
And I think the point of this, in terms of the continuing partnership with the local authority, is that we would see this kind of question as part of the inquiry. We wouldn't see that as a dead end for Debbie. We'd be saying, actually, here's someone who is very passionate about the work, who's very skilled, who actually, I saw her, she came and introduced what she did to the second group, and it was just brilliant, and she was able to be very articulate about what she did. And so we would be saying, so where do we go next for Debbie? And we've already talked about certain possibilities. She could perhaps go into another nursery and do some shadowing or some peer support, and there are other nursery owners who are responding to that and saying, actually, we would really welcome that. And we're just giving this as a bit of an example, that if you take an inquiry approach to learning, rather than just have a one-off training or course or something where people are achieving outcomes at the end, the whole point of an inquiry is that it is open-ended, and every question that comes up, or every frustration that comes up, or every problem that comes up is another opportunity to reflect again and say, where do we go from here? And this is the important thing about it being a partnership between, in this case, a university and a local authority. Because we're doing that, it then becomes an issue collaboratively to look at, so where do we go next, and everybody is working together to find that way forward.
Yeah, Debbie startled me in one of the meetings, because I've been an academic for some 40 years, and it was when Debbie just talked about her values, and actually one that came out was loving kindness. And I thought, well, in 40 years, no academic has ever put into the university that value of loving kindness as something that really matters in terms of the knowledge of educators. So when you said you're not an academic, and I'm thinking there's something wrong with the academy that hasn't brought that valuing of loving kindness right at the heart of what the universities are all about. So I'm just hoping that we can continue working together to try to actually show the meanings that are being expressed every day in your settings of that sense of loving kindness. Not only loving kindness, but one of my students took on the idea of a passion for compassion. She was working with Alzheimer's patients and carers, and she actually got a high degree for that value. So, but we've nothing on loving kindness. And I think every one of you saw Emma with that beautiful expression as she was changing the nappy. You know, and I really do think the three of you, with the values, you know, we've seen you express in the children. This is what we need to continue with our conversations. And hopefully you've seen yourselves now. And that I call it the embodied knowledge, the knowledge you have in what you do, and everybody in this room has got this kind of knowledge. We do need to find ways of making it public. And what we'd like you to do is just to think now, just about what really does matter to you. And it will be quite unique to you. Everybody here in this room will have, because of your history and the places you work, really unique understandings of what really matters. And it's just trying to get some insight about what really matters that you can actually share just with someone else. And then we can actually take it up later just to see, well, what might we do about this to take this forward so that what really matters to you can come more fully into the world. And I've got to just ask in terms of, am I being clear what I'd like you to do? I'd just like you to reflect for a moment about what really matters to you, and then just share it to a partner in the room, just one other person, and just talk together, just for a couple of minutes, just to share that feeling of what really matters. Is that okay? Mm-hmm.